In-depth journalism in the Memphis community, the Daily Memphian is of Memphis, not just in Memphis, and seeks to tell the stories of this city. TheDailyMemphian.com. Truth in place.
Welcome back to another edition of the Daily Memphian's Memphis Grizzlies podcast. This is Drew Hill, joined as always by Chris Herrington. Chris, we have reached the All-Star break. We have finally made it to what feels like maybe a little bit of a necessary pause here for the Memphis Grizzlies. Not because, it's been a long season, but just because it's been a long week, week and a half.
This is certainly true.
That it feels like we could use a little bit of a pause. There will be some stuff, I'm sure, that comes out of All-Star Weekend. Adam Silver's expected to talk, so we can get into that a little bit. And we will have some Rising Stars players, although it seems like it's not certain Cedric Coward is going to play. Right?
Yeah, no, I mean, he missed the last game, obviously, with the knee thing. It was listed as doubtful, and he jogged off the floor when the injury happened, so it doesn't seem to be serious. So, I mean, maybe he'll. It's not like that's going to be a high octane affair. Maybe they'll let him participate in that. He has not been replaced on the team, and there have been players who have been replaced on the team already, so that may be an indication that he might play.
Right. So we will see on that. Your thoughts on the games this week? There has been 2 basketball games. You covered them both. 2 losses, Golden State and Denver. Golden State one was a strange collapse.
Yeah.
And then the Denver game
was not. It was a hard fought. It was a comeback. They were down 15. They were down 14, and then they came back, and then they got down 15, and they came back again. And I don't think they took a lead late, but they came back and tied it. I think like 109. And, Denver made more shots down the stretch than the Grizzlies did. In particular, Tim Hardaway Jr. hit a corner 3. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope missed a 3, and there you go. We're definitely in eye of the beholder territory as far as these games. There are still fans out there, and there's no one right way to fan. So to each his own. The fans out there are like, let's fire the coach. Why didn't he call a timeout against Golden State? Like, what is this like game execution? And their fans are like, we're kind of tanking here, and these are competitive losses, and that's kind of the best of both worlds, and so let's move on. I'm a little bit more of the latter mind frame at this point than the former. So I don't know how much to take out of these games. I do think the team is not. I think this situation puts coaches and players in a rough spot, and I think the coaches understand the situation. And I don't think the coaches have altered what they're doing in the way that I've noticed maybe some other teams do so. But do I think awareness of that situation has anything to do with whether you're calling a timeout? Maybe, maybe not. But I think generally the players are playing hard and they're at a disadvantage, and the organization understands they're at a disadvantage, and everyone's playing their proper roles, and we'll see where it ends up. I think the Denver game was a very well fought game. I think the guys who are out there generally are playing really hard, and some of them are doing some good things for themselves. A guy like Omax Prosper has been hitting threes, been playing with energy.
Yep.
A guy like Jemai Mashak has been getting minutes and showing that he might be a real NBA player. He defends all over the place. He defends multiple positions. He can finish stuff around the rim, even contested. He's made a few threes. Maybe he might be a real player.
Yeah, that is definitely where we are. You called it eye of the beholder territory. I'll call it get with the program territory.
Yeah. Right.
They told you what this is going to look like. Zach Kleiman said it out loud. He said, we're pivoting to a younger build and we're focusing on development or whatever. Maybe I'm making that second part up, but they're truly.
They're turning the page as much as they were able to at this trade deadline.
That's right. That's right.
As much as they were able to at this trade deadline.
Yeah. However you want to phrase it, they're telling you what's going to happen here to end the season. So I'm not.
They're in a dicey spot, man. It's going to be hard to make up ground. They may have to try to hold ground.
So that's the thing. We have several boxes to check here on the pod. I think we've got to talk a little Ja. We got to talk a little Jaren Jackson still, even though he's no longer on the team. We should talk some draft and we can talk some All-Star break. There may be some more broader NBA topics this time because that's the point of the season we have reached. But yeah, everything we just said, just like buckle up for what this is going to look like through the end of the season because it does really feel that way. And we can start with just the tanking, which is happening across the league, and it's like the hot button topic at the moment. I actually was just seeing a clip from Draymond Green's podcast in which he was accusing the Grizzlies of tanking because they sat Ty Jerome at the end of those last few games. Now, Ty Jerome's on a minutes restriction. As
Ty
to whether
Jerome
he,
would Ty Jerome would I think probably he would definitely have been on a minutes restriction when he started playing, no matter what the circumstances of the season
yeah,
were. He would probably still be on one now. Now, do I think they will carry that minutes restriction longer than they might have otherwise? I think that might be the case. But like, he coming off a pretty serious calf strain for a guy who has an injury history, like they were going to be careful with that.
the Grizzlies haven't had to be too egregious with anything because the
No.
injury situation pretty much dictated it for them.
Yep.
Early on in the season. Some of these other teams, though, it's pretty bad. Like the Jazz. I'm interested in how you feel about this because I think there's two mindsets you could take with the Jazz stuff. You could say, well, at least the Jazz are playing their guys instead of just. In which this is going to change, and we'll talk about Jaren in just a second. But you could have said, well, at least the Jazz are playing Jaren Jackson and playing Lauri Markkanen. They're just not playing him in the fourth quarter of a close game to try to see if they can lose. The Jazz, obviously, they have to give up their pick if they're outside the top eight, so they're trying to stay in the top eight. I don't know. Is it more egregious to play your guys and then bench them for the end, or is it more egregious to just not play your guys at all?
Well, I think it comes across as more egregious. Obviously, you have a better chance of winning a game if you're playing your best players 25 minutes than if you're playing them 0 minutes. So in reality, it's worse to set guys completely who could otherwise be able to play. In reality, that's worse. But once a game begins, to pull completely healthy guys in the fourth quarter is a sign that you are actively within the game attempting to lose, right? It's one thing to put your team in a situation where they are likely to lose, and then once the clock starts, you play the game honestly. That's kind of one thing, right? But once you sort of start disrupting what you're doing in the game itself artificially, I think that rubs people the wrong way, even if it's in fact probably not more conducive to losing than just like, oh, Trae Young's quad is still acting up or whatever 3 months later, you can stay on the bench.
Yeah, I agree. I think visually it's a little bit more jarring when it's like, hey, look, the Jazz, they have a 12-point lead. When this whole
Jared hits a
roster's
three
on
and
the
he goes and sits
floor.
down for the fourth quarter.
Right. Yeah. Like visually, I can understand how that would be a little bit more aggravating to fans or basketball watchers who are like, hey, look, I'm tuning into the Jazz tonight, and then all of a sudden, there's no reason to watch the end of the game.
The
Um,
Jazz thing is interesting because, and now we'll get into the Jared stuff because that's now throws a wrench
sure.
into it. But if that were not the case and he was just healthy and playing out the season, like I know Walker Kessler's out for the year, but that's a team that could have actually decided to go the other way and to have decided, not only are we tired of losing for next season, we're tired of losing for this season. And we like this team we have, and we're going to throw them out there and just see what happens. And like we may end up being in the play-in tournament like right now. If we lose a draft pick, we lose a draft pick, but we have so much talent at this point. We believe in our team and we want to see it start to win so we can that will carry over into next season. They could have done that. I'm not saying they should have done that, but that would have been a rational thing to do as well to me.
Nobody complains about the teams that were doing this to start the season, you know?
Right.
Nobody's complaining about the Pacers, right? Or the Wizards or the Pelicans.
Well, the
Well,
thing
the
is, they're
Pelicans, I
always
guess, aren't tanking because they're just
no,
that
they're
bad.
not.
They don't have their pick. That's right.
There are always going to be bad teams. That's the thing. Like it's
The
a zero sum
Nets.
game.
That's the one I was looking for. The Nets.
But there are always going to be bad teams. The number of losses, the number of wins will even out every season. That's the way it works. And there will always be teams that are like, on at the downside of a cycle, right? And so in some cases, being bad and being tanking and being bad are not the same thing. And so I think that distinction sort of, changes over the course of a season. A team being bad from the jump doesn't necessarily mean they're tanking. You just can't always be good, and sometimes you have to go through a process to get good again. This is going to be a question for the Grizzlies going forward, right? How fast will this process be? That's something that Zach Kleiman entertained, last week. And so I think the tanking thing is real. I think sometimes the conversation can get a little overboard because sometimes teams are just bad. To your point about the Pelicans, they're not tanking; they're just bad.
Right. No, yeah, that's true. And there are several bad teams in the NBA, and I could make the argument the Grizzlies were bad when all their players were hurt in the first 10 games of the season.
Well, this is the thing. I wrote about this week. I guess maybe today it came out. I did a column. You did a column on tanking last week, sort of in a broader sense. I did sort of a specific like Grizzlies history tanking thing. The last time they really tanked, they were bad in between. They had the gap year, the year they ended up, getting Edie, and you could call that tanking. But that team just got blown up, and they just didn't have. They didn't. There was no choice for them to be bad that season. Also, it was not a draft that people were super excited about, so it wasn't this league wide thing like people are like tanking to get Zachary Ricochet or Alex Starr, right? Like that did not happen that year. But if you go back to 2007, 2017, 2018, that's the last time the Grizzlies really tanked, and it was a similar situation where it wasn't something they decided to do from the jump. They thought they were going to be good. They'd made the playoffs the year before, just like this year. You're coming off a playoff season. They'd added a veteran, just like this year. This year they added Ty Jerome. That time they added Tyreek Evans. They had the stars of their era. Some of them, not all of them. They had traded. They'd already moved off of Zach Randolph, but they still had Marc Gasol and Mike Conley, just like this team had moved off Desmond Bane, but still had John Morant and Jaren Jackson. And you go into the season thinking you had a chance to at least be a postseason team, not a title contender, but a postseason team. And then things just go awry, man, for various reasons. Injury is a big part of it. That team started 7-4 that year. And then 2 games later, Mike Conley has an injury that puts him on the shelf. Ended up being for the rest of the season. They didn't know that at the time, but they knew it was a serious injury. Suddenly 7-4 turns to 7-15. And some things you thought were going to work out start not working out, like Chandler Parsons. And you look up and now you're out of the playoff race. And at that point you say, you know what? This draft is pretty good next summer. Marc Gasol, maybe you need to scale back your minutes. Maybe you need to rest some games. Tyreek Evans, we didn't trade you because no one was offered anything at the deadline. That's also a familiar situation. We didn't trade you because no one was offering us anything at the deadline, so maybe we'll keep you around. But you know what? If you want to go to walkabout and disappear, we're just going to let that happen because we're trying to lose anyway. That happened then, and it wasn't a case. I don't remember how this got started on this tangent, but it wasn't a case of the team from the jump deciding they wanted to be bad. It's just at some point in the middle of the year, they couldn't be good anymore. And once you can't be good and the draft's looming up ahead, you make the decision to lean into the losses and try to work it that way.
Yeah, this started by us talking about some teams are just bad and then some teams are situational, right?
This Grizzlies team, like that one before, intended to be good, found out they couldn't be good, and then took measures to go the other way.
Look, I'd argue sometimes those are the best kind of tanks, and I'd point to the 2020 Minnesota Timberwolves, who traded for D'Angelo Russell and thought they were going to be good, and then proceeded to win 4 games the second half of the season.
Right.
And by the way, landed the number 1 pick and drafted Anthony Edwards, changed the fate of the franchise. So sometimes those are the best kind of tanks, But yeah, we've gone down the tanking hole a little too far. We passed over the Jaren Jackson Jr. news, so let's rewind a little bit and go back to Utah.
Which impacts the Grizzlies tank situation.
Yes. So Jaren is likely to miss the remainder of the season. This was Chris Haynes who broke the story. Jaren's likely to miss the remainder of the season to undergo surgery on his left knee.
I'm going to say he is going to miss the remainder of the season.
Yeah. Feels pretty safe, huh?
Right.
What were your initial thoughts on this? Obviously, this was something that must have popped up on their physical for the trade.
Yeah, apparently, from what I understand, it popped up on their physical, and they knew about this before he played for them. And apparently, Jaren had said, I want to play a few games before I have this done, just to play a few games for the new team. Can you keep it quiet? And they let him play a few games, and then they came out to do it. And so it's the kind of thing that sounds like I'm interpreting here. It sounds like the kind of thing that is obviously needed. You don't have surgery if you don't need surgery.
Right.
You can find ways to sit guys down without giving them surgery. So don't be a conspiracy theorist about this. This is a real thing. But it sounds like the kind of thing that's somewhat elective. Like he could have played through this and then had the surgery in the summer. Like that's a thing that he could have done. And if this team were like in the playoff race, I bet that's what would have happened. Desmond Bain played with a toe injury and then had surgery in the summer. We've seen that kind of thing happen.
Yeah, Jaron's not the type that takes his summers very easy.
Right. And
So,
so I think because of the team situation they were in, they elected to do this now instead of waiting 2 months to do it or whatever. And then it helps the tank and it gives him it'll help him get back easier for training camp. It sounds like, I mean, no surgery is you never know with a surgery, so you don't want to make light of any kind of procedure, but this sounds like a pretty minor situation.
um, are you surprised it didn't hold the trade up at all?
No, I think A, it's minor. B, Jaron's really good. C, it doesn't because they're not in a playoff race, it doesn't impact the value they're trying to get out of Jaron. If they had made that trade with the idea of, this year's playoffs is part of what we're paying for, and now we may lose this year's playoffs, I think that does impact the value of the trade. But that's not, they didn't make the trade. It helps them to not play Jaron, right? So you're not losing a portion of, when you think about having Jaron on this contract and the value you're going to get from it, this spring and this playoff run was not part of the value proposition for the Utah Jazz. You look at a team like there was a trade that had an issue with it. The Charlotte Hornets traded for Kobe White with Chicago, and then
Mhm.
after the trade, they determined there was a medical issue there they didn't know about. They didn't rescind the trade, but that impacts them because they're in a playoff race. They're trying to move forward. So they actually did go back, and I think they got another second round pick or something from it. I think in this case, it seems like nothing's going to come of it because it has no impact on Utah on the reasons Utah made this trade.
Um, okay, onward to Ja, because it feels like we have to talk about Ja every single podcast.
What was the Zach Kleiman quote? Ja's Ja, and it gets a lot of attention.
Ja's
But this
Ja,
is
and it
about
gets a lot of
organizational
attention.
direction. This is about podcast direction, Drew. This is not about Ja.
This is about podcast direction. Um, how do I say this without being a jerk? There's reporting out there on the Ja stuff, and I would just caution that a lot of the stuff that gets aggregated and tossed around the internet is not always the most firm type of information. And I think it suggested something to the effect of, that this was some sort of wake up call to Ja, and it had a bunch of information in there about Ja's situation with the Grizzlies. We don't have to get into all that. Let's just instead give our own perspective on the Ja stuff, which I think we have already done a little bit, but it's worth another check in on. Look, Zach Kleiman was non-committal about whether or not Ja was going to play again for the Grizzlies this season. If you put
Right.
yourself in Ja Morant's shoes, and you're here on a rebuilding team, and you know that the team is trying to turn the page, move in the new direction, whatever lingo we've already used 50 times on the podcast, you know, he can help his trade value by getting back on the floor, playing well. He's mentioned several times that he just enjoys playing basketball. It's therapeutic for him. So I'd imagine if you were in Josh's shoes, you'd probably want to get back on the court. We have underlined some of the risks that exist with him playing. If he were to get hurt, you could damage his trade value potentially. I think that you're trying to keep the attention on some of your young stars if you're Memphis, that you're planning to build the team around. And so to me, I don't know what's going to happen here. Let's just be honest. Like, I don't think anybody has could tell you firmly whether or not Ja's going to play or not the rest of the season. At this point, I think maybe these decisions are still in the process of being made. But if I were the Grizzlies, I would consider having a short runway at the end of the year that isn't as risky as like playing him in every single game, but kind of managing him from an injury perspective the same way you're going to manage very tightly all your other players on the roster and go from there. Do you have any other thoughts on that? Because I think that's the best case scenario is Ja does play. He plays not a ton because you don't want to increase the risk of him, like I said, getting injured or something, happening. But also, he does get out on the floor again. I think that would be the win-win scenario for everyone. But what are your thoughts?
It would not surprise me if that ended up being the path they took. I don't know if that's what they'll do, but I think it would not surprise me. I think your thought process is very rational on that. I think it's clear that the Grizzlies, without explicitly saying this, it was implicit in what Zach Lyman said, not explicit, that the Grizzlies want to trade Ja Morant this summer. They were unable to do so at the trade deadline. They would like to do so this summer. I think at this point, despite what he said in London, given where things are with the relationship and given the direction of the team, I think I think it's fairly safe to say Ja Morant would welcome probably a trade this summer as well. And so they both are probably looking to find something this summer that can get him somewhere else. And the big question there, and I brought this up last week when we potted right fresh from listening to Zach Lyman. The big question for me there is, to what degree would Morant playing open up or improve the trade market this summer? To what degree will just natural shifts in the league in terms of where draft picks fall and the salary cap opening up and stuff like that create a better market? And to what degree do you need the first? Like, can you rely on the second or not? If you can't rely on the second, do you need the first? And the first, to your point, also carries risks, right? There's downside to that too. And so I think it's a difficult thing to navigate. And I think the best way to navigate that is probably the scenario that you described. I think that's probably the smartest thing. All things considered, that's probably the best way to go.
Okay, let's move on to some other topics. I actually want to introduce a new segment but first, let's take a break for a message from our sponsor.
Without warning. Uh-oh.
Want to make a big impact without getting lost in a big system? Join Youth Villages to be a force for families while becoming part of one. Help make positive changes on a national scale, one community at a time. It takes a family to transform lives. Start with yours. Apply now at youthvillages.org/careers.
Without warning, here we go. New segment that I think we should do every pod that we're together until May. We're going to do a tankathon. One tankathon.
I got it right in front of me on my other laptop.
Okay, who wants to do it? Do you want to do the honors or do you want me to? I have it up as well.
We could each do it and like, see who gets the better result.
I like this. Let's do this. This can become a weekly thing. Ready?
All right. You ready?
Go.
1, 2,
mine's
3.
Gonna be slow here. Oh no.
All right. Well, people can't see it anyway. We're not on video yet. 1, 2, 3. I'm hitting the button.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I am going to cold say we're going with yours. Sight unseen, we're going with your tankathon.
No, we're not.
No, I think we are. I think we're going with your tankathon.
Oh, you moved down?
Mine's no good.
The Grizzlies, who came into this, 8th? From the bottom. They're staying at 8. Washington, Dallas, New Orleans, or Washington, Dallas, Atlanta, because New Orleans pick is traded. Utah moves into the top 4. Sacramento, the Clippers, the Nets, and the Grizzlies. I've got them staying at 8 on the first tankathon. And what do you have?
Man, mine was wild. I moved down 2 spots to 10 for the Grizzlies.
Brutal.
I got Dallas jumping up to the top pick for a second year in a row, moving up 6 spots. Mine is no good.
Well, I've got Dallas at number 2.
Well, that's at least not as bad as Dallas at number 1 for a second year in a row. We don't want that. So I guess we're sticking at 8.
Yeah, we will be.
One thing I'll say about for people out there like clicking tankathon 75 times a day or whatever. We've been talking about these the Orlando and Phoenix picks a lot this season, right? And that's been a source of disappointment because there was some hope that Phoenix would land in the top 10 or whatever. Maybe that would be the good pick, not the Grizzlies' own pick, and that's not going to happen. These things are not going to happen. That said, while the odds are slim, if either or preferably both of those teams stay within the play-in range, they're not going to
Yeah.
fall below the play-in. But if they stay within the play-in instead of moving to the top six, all kinds of things could theoretically happen, right? You can be the 7 and then end up in the lottery if you lose 2 play-in games, right? And if you're the 13th or 14th team of in the lottery, the 14th team has like a 2% chance of jumping into the top 4. Let's say that's Phoenix. The 13th team has like a 6% chance of jumping into the top 4. Let's say that's Orlando. Those teams both missed the play-in, both made to the play-in and missed the playoffs. You're adding like 8% odds to jump into the top 4 on top of the Grizzlies odds, which are going to be 30-something percent. And now you have a better chance of getting something that slips up to the top 4, and you even got a chance to get 2 top 4 picks. The dream is not over. It could happen.
It's not over.
So keep rooting for Orlando and Phoenix to lose.
Yes.
And be in the play-in and have a chance to lose play-in games and be in the back end of that lottery. Keep rooting.
As of now, as of today, we are recording this on Thursday. The Magic are 28-25 on the season. Phoenix is 32-23. The Magic are just not as good as you would think. And so I feel much better about the Orlando potentially falling out of play-in range. Orlando was a team that I had super high hopes for coming into the season. I don't know. Phoenix feels like they're pretty solid to me.
But solid to be a play-in team. This is my point. If they're in the play-in,
I know, but if they're the 7 in the play-in, they just have to win one game and they're going to have 2 home games.
Hey, let's say Devin Booker turns an ankle and suddenly like 2 losses and you're out. Or let's say they fall to 8, right? And I'm just saying, let's not shut the door. These are slim odds, but let's not shut the door on them yet. You should still be rooting for Phoenix and Orlando to lose, and it's not about getting the 16th pick versus the 17th. It's about the slim chance that one of those teams squeaks into the very end of the lottery, and then who knows what could happen.
Look, if it's Phoenix and Golden State, you could totally see Phoenix losing the first play-in game if that's what it is. Now, Jimmy Butler's out for the year, but it's still the Warriors.
And then Kawhi Leonard. Then they're facing Kawhi Leonard, and Kawhi Leonard goes off, and then boom, Phoenix finishes 7th in the regular season, but 9th after the play-in, and now they're the 14th team in the lottery with a 2% chance to jump up. And hey, like, things happen.
Yeah.
I'm trying to keep the dream alive here, Drew.
Orlando's in the mix with who? Charlotte's
coming strong.
The darlings of the NBA, the Hornets, the Toronto's in that mix, the Heat, and the Sixers.
And the Heat sometimes punch above their weight in postseason basketball.
That is true. Yeah, I still feel better about Orlando than I do about Phoenix, but it's not completely dead.
I want those teams 13, 14 in the lottery, and then just see if you get lucky. Anyway,
I'm also
take-a-thon diversion there.
The Grizzlies are how many games? The Grizzlies are
the worst
6.5
click I've ever made, by the way.
Huh?
I think that take-a-thon click I did on the pod is the worst take-a-thon click I've ever done.
Well, that's a bad way to start. You'll have a chance at redemption next week. We're going to do this every single week, so you'll have a chance at redemption next week.
Anyway, you were going to the actual standings right now.
Yeah, I was going to go to the standings real quick. As it stands, Memphis is 6.5 games ahead of the New Orleans Pelicans. I don't know if they're going
to. They got time, man. I believe in New Orleans.
That's the thing. So, like, Utah, it feels like it's going to be pretty hard to slide underneath.
Especially with Jaren now out. Yep.
Dallas, Milwaukee, Memphis is going to be a tight race to the bottom.
Dallas has lost 8 in a row. Milwaukee won. Cam Thomas back. Giannis might come back. I'm feeling a little bit better about the Grizzlies staying ahead. I'm doing reverse standing, staying ahead of Milwaukee. I'm actually more worried about Chicago than Milwaukee.
New Orleans is so far back, 6.5 games back, but they're 5-5 in their last 5, right?
That's right.
So it's certainly possible that could change. I haven't looked up. Maybe I should pull up while we're talking real quick the remaining strength of schedule, because I wonder if New Orleans is past their more difficult stretch of the season.
I
Let me
really thought the
check
Grizzlies
this.
had a chance to catch Utah, and that Jaren thing just really threw cold water on that. I really thought they had a chance there with Utah. They still play Utah a couple more times.
Okay. So the Pelicans are 21st in remaining strength of schedule. Pelicans have one game against the Pistons, Celtics, and Knicks. They have two games against the Rockets, one against the Cavs, and one against the Timberwolves. The Pelicans still have two games against the Kings, one game against the Wizards, three games against the Jazz, one against the Mavericks, one against the Bucks, and one against the Blazers. So there's going to be some
They can do
serious
it.
tanking competition going on there. I mean, that's the one that you really hope because the
Zion.
Pelicans are trying to win. Like their pick is going to Atlanta. That's the one I think that you feel pretty good about if you
Stay
throw out
healthy,
Dallas and
Zion.
Milwaukee
You
that
got
could
this,
slide
buddy.
up.
Close strong, Zion.
Should we talk a little draft? Should we like preview a little draft? And we're gonna have like I guess the All-Star stuff to talk about next week. I'm not looking forward to it. I just think it's pretty rough. But should we talk a little draft? Would you like to throw? I tweeted
Yeah,
out a few names that I
I,
like already.
I'm in trust the process mode. So it's a journey of discovery for me. I've embarked on the journey.
Have you watched any college hoops?
I do not have conclusions. I actually watched. It's hard for me to watch full games because I don't like have regular cable anymore, and all these games on ESPN, which I don't have. I did discover I had Peacock, which I did. I thought we'd canceled that, but I had Peacock. I actually watched cover to cover, overtime Illinois Wisconsin the other night. Saw Keaton Wagler go for I think 34. Had a shot to win. That was online a little short. That was a fun game to watch. Only one. There were maybe some second round guys, but only one real prospect in that game, and Wagler. But I do like watching a real game instead of just watching clips and highlights because I think you learn more watching real full games. So I did watch one full game of a prospect
You
this week.
really missed out on Duke, North Carolina, which was a high level game, and it was
Yeah,
Boozer versus Wilson, and they were
I've
both.
watched YouTube clips, but I didn't get to see the whole game. Yeah.
Oh man, they were both so good. And let's talk Wilson, who has a fractured hand now and is going to be out
Oh, I missed this. He has a fracture. When did this happen?
today.
I
Today,
missed this.
he is hurt.
So is he gonna be out through the tournament and everything?
I don't know if there's a timeline on the return. He fractured his hand mid game. I guess he came out and finished the game. There's no specific timetable for his return at this point. I'll say this. I know everybody loves Cam Boozer and he's a tremendous player and there's a reason he's considered in that top three tier. But for me, Wilson's as close to those top level guys as possible as you can get in this draft. And he really fits the profile of the type of player that the Grizzlies really like. I don't know if he's there at like 8, 9, but if the Grizzlies
No.
move up or if they're able to, like I said, fall beneath Milwaukee and Dallas and maybe New Orleans, now you're getting closer.
I mean, you can jump to 4 also in the lottery.
I think if he's available, that like he is absolutely a Grizzlies guy. If you look at his efficiency numbers, the true shooting percentage, all of that, blocks per foul, steals per foul, like he's got it all. He's one of the most efficient college players in the country, perhaps only behind Cam Boozer.
I
And
hate that you're just
I think he really fits with the Grizzlies, with the
so now I'm
roster
mad.
too.
Now I'm mad because you're jumping out in front of me
Because
on
you
the
like
guy
it.
on a guy I was already in on, a guy who has little baby KG vibes. This is my guy. You're jumping out in front of me on him. There's the one play, it was earlier in the season against Kansas that I saw where they got like an 8-second violation. And he guarded like 3 guys and shut down the whole team defensively, and then like was hulking up and screaming at the crowd because he forced an 8-second violation. This is my dude. I like him a lot. He's very coded to guys I like. I was a big Jaron Jackson Jr. guy when he came out of that draft. I was a big Evan Mobley guy when he came out of that draft. Kevin Garnett's like my all-time favorite guy. He's probably a little smaller, at least a little bit, than all those guys, but he has that intensity and springiness, that Garnett intensity and springiness in a little bit smaller frame. And I like the athleticism. I like the demeanor. And I think the upside the floor is probably maybe a little lower for him, certainly than Boozer and maybe DeBonsa. I think the ceiling is maybe higher than Boozer. Again, I'm early in the journey here, but my first draft conviction, which I shared with a couple of people, is that the first tier of this draft, people have been calling it a top three all year long. It's at least four. It might be more than four, but it's at least four, and Caleb Wilson is in that four. I don't know if I think he's better than DeBonsa or Boozer, but I think he is in the conversation with those guys. I do.
Um, gonna throw out a couple other names because the Grizzlies are gonna have 3 picks, so it's gonna be very and like it's such a good draft.
Early, middle, and late, man.
Could be early, middle, and late.
Late
Hans
meaning early
Stein,
second
I
round.
like. Well, go if you're a Grizzlies fan, go watch Hans Steinbach at Washington. I know that's like not an as quite of an exciting name, but another guy I think really fits the Grizzlies draft history. We could talk about the Grizzlies draft history a little bit, like in looking through some of
I have
this
not watched Steinbach yet. I've looked at stats on everybody, but I have not watched him yet.
power. There's some power there that I like, and I do kind of wonder what it looks like next to Edie, but I think at this point of a rebuild, the Grizzlies are just trying to get good basketball players. He fits that sort of mold. If you go back and look at what the Grizzlies have done draft wise to John Morant, that's I guess technically when the Zach Kleiman era started. Um, they've pretty much drafted high efficiency college players with every pick that's in the first round. Maybe the one exception, big exception, is Zaire Williams.
Right.
And
And then some second round stuff. GG
and
Jackson.
some second round stuff, Gigi Jackson, Jalen Wells. But that's late second round stuff where they're willing to take a little bit more of a shot. But like I'm paying attention because of the rest of the history. Like they even signed John Conchar was like one of the top 5 players in college basketball efficiency wise. Goes undrafted, and the Grizzlies signed him immediately, and we were like, who? Who is this guy? Purdue Fort Wayne, they have a long history of this, from Xavier Tillman to David Roddy to Jake LaRavia to Ja Morant. All of these players were very high efficiency college players that were both productive. It mattered a little bit of less athleticism, age, and more about efficiency and production. I'm looking at Hans Steinbach. I'm looking at Joshua Jefferson at Iowa State in this draft, Dalen Swain in this draft. Like I'm
Let,
looking
let,
at the players
let me
that,
give you
that
one.
match those things.
Let
Huh?
me give you one, which you didn't
Okay,
name.
give me
Let's see
one.
if I can get in. I'm interested in all those guys you named. So there's a stat, and it's one of these. Well, it's not a stat; it's a metric. There's this metric, and it's one of these things where I don't know the secret sauce. So sometimes I don't really like using that stuff. But there's a writer I follow, Jeremiah Singelman, who wrote earlier this year about how players, true freshmen, major college, true freshman NBA prospects, right? So you narrow it down. We're not talking about small college guys. Major college, true freshmen on the NBA prospect list who have especially 12 or better, but also 10 or better, box plus minus as true freshmen. These guys are always drafted high, and they're almost always good unless they have injury problems, right? One of the like couple that didn't pan out as much were Lonzo Ball and Nerlens Noel, who both had injury
I'm
problems.
so curious where you're going with this. I think I have an
And, and
idea.
so,
So
and so like
continue.
the best true freshmen like box plus minus numbers ever are like Zion Williamson, Cooper Flagg, Anthony Davis, some of these guys, right? And he made the point how it's super rare to have more than like one or two of these guys in a draft. And at the time he wrote, it was like this draft has 5 of them. Well, guess what? Now it's 7. As of a few days ago, I'm going to give you the true top 7 true freshmen box plus minus guys in college basketball this season. That's of like 3 or 4 days ago when I looked this up. Number 1 is Cam Boozer. Number 2 is Darren Peterson. Number 3 is Caleb Wilson.
Yep.
Number 4 is Kingston Flemings. Number 5 is AJ DeBonsa. Number 6 is Keaton Wagler. We've just named in some order like the consensus top 6 of this draft, right? Number 7, there's one more. Braden Burries of number 1 ranked Arizona, who's a little bit older as a freshman, and he's a little step down numbers wise from those other 6, but he's on the list. He's the next guy on the list, And so I went and watched him. I like him. He does not pop in terms of being spectacular about it in any one area, but he seems like he's just sort of good at everything. He can handle, he can defend, he can shoot, he can play on the ball, he can play off the ball. He just looks like a really just good, solid all around basketball player. And for the Grizzlies, we're hoping, like, fans are going to hope they jump up into the top four. Well, if they don't jump into the top four, they're going to be picking 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, somewhere in that area,
Mm-hmm.
right? So one of the key things to figure out in this draft is like, who are the best players there, right? Because
Yeah.
it's not going to be Caleb Wilson and Cam Boozer and AJ DeMonza. And that seems like an area of the draft that's really unsettled because you have a couple guys who were highly touted and got off to rough starts who are now starting to come back around, Mikael Brown and Nate Ament. But who else is going to be there? Is it going to be Darius Acuff? Is it going to be Hans Steinbach? Is it going to be could it be a Braden Burry? Could it be someone who's not there on the mocks, but the Grizzlies decide, well, we like this guy. We're taking him 8, even though he's number 15 on the mocks, right?
They do that all the time, right?
That's right.
Like, that's why you have to look, like, for me, some of these guys that are projected later in the first round are absolutely targets that the Grizzlies might be taking in the middle of the draft earlier than folks would expect. There's I don't really want to say it out loud because I don't want to give any secret recipes away, but I do think that there's a a few different statistics that if cross, I guess, previous draft picks that the Grizzlies have made, and there's one particular like all-encompassing efficiency stat in which almost every player that they draft falls within. One player that's interesting to me, older player, not a true freshman, but like JT Toppin is one of the most efficient and productive college basketball players. A lot older, been in college basketball for quite some time now, but like, is that a guy that at the end of the, first round or at the beginning of the second round, the Grizzlies would have interest in taking? I think absolutely, right? Because that's the type of player that they've taken in the past. And then the other one we can't leave without at least mentioning his name, Yaxel Lindenberg.
That's what I was just about to say.
Has an
He's
incredible name,
Toppin.
and Tigers fans are familiar with him, and
Right.
he just demolishes college basketball in terms of production.
Among
That feels like a Grizzlies guy, too.
among all current draft prospects, he actually has the second highest box plus minus overall after Boozer. But this is like, not only is this a senior, this is a senior who's going to be almost 24 years old by draft night.
Yeah.
Should be
Well, we
close to
can't
20.
name every prospect because then we've basically cheated, and we've named a lot already, and we do have to talk draft for like, what, a few more months?
Hey,
So,
none of my opinions are in stone. I'm 10% of the way on the journey.
yeah. It's a fun year to be watching college hoops, though.
Yep.
There's a lot of really good teams in college basketball this year. So look, Grizzlies fans, I know it may be difficult to watch the end of the Warriors game in some of these games, but go catch some college hoops. There's some great college hoops. There's a lot of big time players on good college basketball teams. We are approaching March. We're like 2 weeks away from conference tournaments starting. And we'll have a lot more draft to talk. And then the draft lottery is on Mother's Day this year. Just so everyone knows, just putting out the alert ahead of time. Make sure you do the stuff that you need to do to celebrate all the moms out there, and then prepare to grab whatever lucky token or item you have, and sit down and watch the NBA draft lottery because it's going to be an intense one potentially for the Memphis Grizzlies. Anything else before we get out of here? We've talked draft, we talked Jaron. I mean, I guess we could talk All-Star Weekend. I have very little interest in this. Do you think that the USA versus World is going to have any impact on the game? I do not.
I don't care even a little bit.
Yeah, it's
You know
rough.
what I care about?
What do
I
you
care about that my wife got back from out of town. Actually, she was in Memphis while I was here, and Nashville. She got back this afternoon, and the neighborhood bar down the street is going to have an old fashioned and a burger with my name on it, and we're going to walk down there, sit at the bar, and hang out. And that's what I care about. I don't care about USA versus World. I care about me versus the old fashioned.
Me versus the
It's going to
old.
be a collaboration, though, not a contest.
It's funny. Okay, so obviously we've now transitioned to there's more to life than basketball. I mess that up every single week. I'm now part of the club, Chris. We talked about, Your
We talk about this
memories
on
of
a pod.
having
I
me
can never remember what
on
I
the
say on
pod.
air or what I say off.
We
right?
did say
Which is
you did
dangerous.
say it on the pod
Okay.
that your daughter threw up on you.
All over me. It was a gusher.
Yeah, that happened to me today.
There you go.
I have been,
Great stuff.
finding daycare, services in Memphis is tough because there's like a wait list everywhere.
Yep, been there.
And when your kid arrives 3.5 weeks early, you are 3.5 weeks earlier than expected on the start of your daycare. So this week you had both games. I've been running daddy daycare at home, and I gotta say this kid is just running circles around me. Like I am the tanking dad because I mean, I can't keep the pacifier in. Like I'm learning on the fly. It's about development over
You got to
here.
have extras ready. It's just like an NBA ref. If like someone
Right.
spills beer on the ball, you got to go grab the another ball and get it in play.
Right. It's no longer about wins and losses in the Hill household. This is about development.
That's right.
And we are clearly in the development stage
You've turned the
because
page.
I feel like I have been bullied all week by my 3-month-old daughter. Um, but we are surviving. I did have to change shirts. I have the Berlin game shirt on because
Nice.
the other shirt that I had on uh, has throw up all over it and is in the wash. So that was a good start. That was a really good start to the day this morning. And that this is another reason why we welcome the All-Star break here. We are looking forward to the All-Star break. The game itself, the jury is very much out on, as you mentioned, but we'll be definitely paying attention to what Adam Silver has to say. That's something we didn't get to. Maybe
Yep.
we can get to it after he talks. It looks like NBA expansion could be on deck. If that does happen, we could have some East-West conversation among a potential team moving to the Eastern Conference. I would guess the Grizzlies would probably have interest in that. So we'll have plenty to discuss next week. But until next time, for Drew and for Chris, we're out of here.